The United States is the third largest country in the world. A cross-country trip from California to Maine covers over 3,000 miles of the United States. Because of this, full-scale national politics requires large amounts of traveling back and forth across the country. This amount of travel is an unfortunate and unavoidable truth of the American political process and requires that candidates and parties raise large war chests to fund bids for office. Across American history, the number of zeros at the end of campaign budgets has grown, but the large theme remains. Running for a major United States political office requires wealth, or at least support from those who have wealth. The main issue with how politicians raise these monies is not the size of the campaigns, but how the money is raised. Some legislative action has been made to regulate how campaign money is raised, but over the past 100 years, much of the progress towards financial transparency has been undone. Questionable sources of campaign funds date back to the 1820s, when political campaigns were funded via a spoils of war strategy. Under this system, a candidate promised government jobs to those who gave him financial support. This was practiced during the 1820s and remained common practice for 60 years. But in 1883, the Pendleton Civil Service Act outlawed this system, and political candidates turned to corporations to raise the funds they needed to run for office. Corporations began to contribute massive amounts of money to candidates, and the American public began to become disgusted by the amount of money pouring into the candidates' coffers. President Theodore Roosevelt led a movement in Congress that prevented corporations from being able to donate money to political campaigns. Passed in 1907, the Tillman Act banned all political contributions from corporations. The law stood until Congress passed the Federal Election Campaign Act in 1971. This law, which was largely supported by unions, allowed for the creation of political action committees. It also opened the door for corporations and unions to fund political campaigns. Once again, Congress attempted to curb the influence of corporations in political campaigns with the passage of the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of 2002, also known as the McCain-Feingold Act. The biggest change brought about by the McCain-Feingold Act was its limiting of soft money, money that is given by people or corporations without limit. These donations typically come through PACs and super PACs. Candidates running in federal elections after the passing of this act were only permitted to raise hard money. Candidates were also no longer allowed to control their own political action committees or to finance their own campaigns. The McCain-Feingold Act also put more restrictions on advertisements. Under the law, if a candidate's campaign makes and distributes an ad, he or she must endorse the message. Messages created by party committees must have a disclaimer, and any ads not made by the candidate's campaign must list the sponsoring committees as well as provide their contact information. This made candidates and party committees more responsible to the public by forcing them to announce who made each advertisement. In 2010, this law was gutted by the Supreme Court with their decision in the case of Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. The case started in 2008 when the nonprofit group Citizens United sought to air a critical movie of Senator Hillary Clinton at the time of her candidacy to become the Democratic Party's nominee for President of the United States. They also wanted to advertise the film on television before an upcoming primary. This was in direct violation of the McCain-Feingold Act. The court determined that under the First Amendment, corporate funding of independent political broadcasts and political campaigns could not be limited. Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote for the majority, joined by Chief Justice Roberts and Justices Scalia, Alito, and Thomas. Justice John Paul Stevens wrote the dissent, and he was joined by Justices Bader Ginsburg, Breyer, and Sotomayor. The majority held that political speech maintained by the First Amendment is crucial to the United States as a democracy. They also concluded that this is no less true even if the speech comes from a corporation. The court did, however, believe that the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act's disclosure requirements for the movie in question about Senator Clinton were constitutional. The court also upheld the ban on direct contributions to candidates from corporations and unions. The biggest establishment in the case was the court's defining of a corporation as a person. The court cites the First Amendment as protecting associations of individuals, which they say pertains to corporations as well. The court's ruling freed corporations and unions to spend money to directly advocate for the election or defeat of candidates as long as they do not directly become involved with the candidates' campaigns or their political parties. The landmark ruling would forever change the landscape of political campaigns. Many corporations wanted to take advantage of the unlimited donations that Citizens United allowed them to make, but they did not want to disclose their political contributions, so they found a way to circumvent the disclosure requirements found in McCain-Feingold. They used shell corporations to hide their donations to super PACs. Shell corporations are inactive companies created by anonymous individuals and corporations that are used to hold money. Most of the time, these corporations exist only on paper. The financiers of these shell corporations are known only to the people running the shell corporation and the IRS. They are never legally obligated to be disclosed to the general public. Shell corporations have historically been used to hide shady business practices, including tax evasion. But after the Citizens United case, shell corporations were used to anonymously funnel money to super PACs. Instead of companies or individuals giving directly to super PACs where their names would be published, they gave money to shell corporations with names like Specialty Group Incorporated, American Action Network, American Energy Opportunity Fund, and Indiana Values. These shell corporations then donated the money that they gathered to super PACs. So when the super PACs disclose the source of their donations, only the name of the shell corporations appear. With the Supreme Court's decision in the Citizens United case came large amounts of mixed reaction from politicians. While Minority Leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, said that the decision struck a blow for the First Amendment, President Obama openly criticized the decision, saying that would usher in an era of corporate interest, drowning out the voice of the American people. He speculated that either corporations or very wealthy individuals would be able to single-handedly fund entire campaigns. But people would have to wait until the 2012 election to see the full impacts of this landmark Supreme Court decision. The aftermath of Citizens United has brought along one of the most expensive and contentious election years in the history of American politics. Not only did the Supreme Court decide to give corporations the right to free speech, but they also gave individuals and corporations the ability to give unlimited amounts of money in order to influence voters. These donations were received and organized by independent expenditure-only political committees, or super PACs, as they are more commonly known. In the 2012 election, these super PACs spent $631,375,766 in order to influence voters, and the names of many of these donors will never be known. Money has always been a factor in American politics, and Citizens United ensures that it will continue to be a factor for the foreseeable future. The central issue to campaign finance is not the amount of spending done by a single corporation or interest, but it is whether or not corporations should be entitled to First Amendment rights. If super PACs disclose the source of their political donations, the problems with campaign finance could be resolved. Until we have more transparency into corporations and their financing of political campaigns, we may continue to sink into a system where our leaders are no longer determined by how deeply they care about their country and the issues facing it, but by how deep the pockets of their supporters are.